Georgia? Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. How about Senator David Perdue, everybody? Thank you for being here, Senator. And the incomparable Herman Cain. Give it up for Herman Cain one more time. Thank you for that stirring address. And I so appreciate my fellow conservative friend I serve with in the Congress of the United States and one of the most respected conservatives in Washington, D.C., Congressman Tom Price. Now, Tom's known me a long time, and he knows the introduction I prefer is a little bit shorter than the one he just gave. That is that I'm a Christian, a conservative, and a Republican, in that order. And it's just now a little more than a month ago that I was humbled and honored beyond words to accept my party's nomination to run and serve as the next Vice President of the United States of America. And Karen and I are truly humbled and grateful that you're here. You know, I joined this campaign in a heartbeat. I truly did. Because you have nominated a man for president I've had the privilege to get to know. Not just when the Klieg lights are on, but when they're off. And I got to tell you, the man is a fighter. He's a winner. He never backs down. He's got a heart for the American people. And I know that Donald Trump will be the next president of the United States of America. You know, people back in Indiana, I was home over the weekend, they come up to me and say, what is it about Donald Trump? And you know, I'm from south of Highway 40, so we speak pretty plainly down there. I said, I don't know. I said, Donald Trump just gets it. You know what I mean? I mean, he just gets it. He's the genuine article. I truly believe that Donald Trump understands the frustrations and the aspirations of the American people like no leader in my party since Ronald Reagan. I mean, he's a genuine article, distinctly American. And he's a doer in a game usually reserved for talkers. And when Donald Trump does his talking, he doesn't go tiptoeing around all those rules of political correctness that the media and the political class puts in the way of men and women that make a difference. He speaks from his heart and from his mind, and he will make America great again. And frankly, it's just a lot of fun to watch. Especially watching, you know, the other party. I mean, he drives them a little bit crazy. I mean, you think about it, the party in power and all their friends in the media just seem powerless to figure this guy out. I mean, they all keep telling each other, you know, now we got him, right? That tweet, that word. They think the usual methods are going to work, and then they turn on the TV the next morning, and Donald Trump is still standing stronger than ever before and fighting for the American people, and he's going to fight all the way to the White House. You know, it really is pretty amazing if you think about it. At the very moment that the people of Georgia and the people of this country are crying out for something new and different, crying out for real change this time around, the other party has answered with a stale agenda and the most predictable of names. You know, people are restless for change, ready to break free from the failed status quo, the failed patterns in Washington, D.C., and the Democratic Party just anointed someone who represents everything this country is tired of. So let me tell you, Georgia, let me just tell you straight from my heart. For the sake of our security, for the sake of our prosperity, for the sake of the rule of law and preserving the highest standards of integrity in the highest office in the land, we must decide here and now that Hillary Clinton will never be elected President of the United States of America. As we've got, in Donald Trump, we have a leader. In Donald Trump, we've got a leader. We've got a leader who has a heart for the American people. Donald Trump has never forgotten the men and women who work with their hands, who grow the food, who build our roads and bridges, who tend to our sick, who teach our kids. And let me promise you, as I travel around this country with him, and I see the way he responds to these men and women who serve our communities and our state and our nation, Donald Trump will never forget the men and women of law enforcement who stand on the thin blue line and protect our families each and every day. Never will. You know, as the Chief Law Enforcement Officer of the United States of America, I promise you, President Donald Trump will support our law enforcement at every level. He will provide the resources they need to protect our families and come home safe to theirs. And he will fight to restore law and order in every city and every town in the United States of America. He will. Because the Lord knows we need change in this country. 7.5 years. 7.5 years of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton has weakened America's place in the world and stifled our nation's economy. And we need to talk about it. We need to talk about it. It's amazing when you think of what this administration's leadership has meant to America's place on the world stage. I served for 10 years on the Foreign Affairs Committee. I traveled in and out of Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom. I saw the hard-fought gains in the global war on terror. I stood at funerals with families in Indiana who paid the ultimate sacrifice. And yet, if you looked at a map today of the wider Middle East where those hard-fought gains were won, and a map from 2009 when this administration took office, you almost couldn't recognize them. Before I get into that, can I just ask the people who've worn the uniform of the United States of America, would you raise your hand and allow us to just say thank you one more time for your service to this nation? Thank you. Thank you. You know, it was Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama who compromised the hard-fought gains in Operation Iraqi Freedom. People forget in 2009, things had turned around in Iraq. The surge had worked. Sacrifices of our soldiers and their extraordinary courage had stabilized that country. But because Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton were on a timetable for withdrawal without negotiating another status of forces agreement, we pulled out of Iraq, created a vacuum in which the extraordinary, hideous organization of ISIS was conjured up to compromise territory of Iraq that had been won and secured by American gains. You know, it was Hillary Clinton who actually instigated the disastrous agreement with the radical mullahs in Iran. $150 billion and $400 million on a pallet that we're told is not a ransom for 4 Americans. You know, they can say that delivering $400 million in cash on the very same day that 4 Americans were released wasn't a ransom, but the American people know better, and I'll make you a promise. When Donald Trump is President of the United States of America, we won't be paying ransom to terrorist-sponsoring states or terrorists. they'll be paying a price. If they threaten the American people or detain or harm our citizens or our allies, I promise you that. You know, history teaches us that weakness arouses evil. And Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama's foreign policy of leading from behind, moving red lines, feigning resets with Russia, and the rise, rule, and reign of ISIS are a testament to this truth of history. And perhaps most striking of all to me, as the proud father of a United States Marine, as the father of a United States Marine, it's important to remember that it was Hillary Clinton who left Americans in harm's way in Benghazi, and after 4 Americans fell, she said, "What difference at this point does it make?" Let me say to each and every one of you, more as a parent than as a candidate for high office, anybody who said that, anybody who did that, should be disqualified from ever serving as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the United States of America. We cannot have 4 more years apologizing to our enemies and abandoning our friends. America needs to be strong for the world to be safe. And I promise you, from the first day of a Trump administration, we will rebuild our military, restore the arsenal of democracy. We will stand with our allies, and we will confront and hunt down and destroy those who threaten our people and our freedom. Donald Trump will lead with strength on the world stage, and he'll also lead with strength at home. And boy, do we need it. You know, they like to tell us that this economy is doing well. We heard a lot of rosy speeches at their convention. But men and women of Georgia, we're in the weakest economic recovery since the Great Depression. Just this last couple of days, we learned that our economy had grown by just 1.1%, rounded down from the last. We have the lowest labor participation rate since the 1970s, and there's 7 million more Americans living in poverty today than the day that Barack Obama took office. Hillary Clinton's plan, it's more of the same. I mean, she's literally running, and her party is boasting about her running for Barack Obama's 3rd term. More taxes, more regulation, more Obamacare, and more of the same policies on energy that are stifling our nation's economy. $1 trillion in new spending, more than $1 trillion in new taxes. You know, all that spending, Hillary Clinton was asked just the other day how she was going to pay for all those new government programs. She said, quote, "I'll tell you how we're going to pay for it. We're going to go where the money is. We're going to go after super wealthy. We're going to go after corporations. We're going to go after Wall Street." Well, you know, the only problem with that is, as Margaret Thatcher used to say, the problem with socialism is you eventually run out of other people's money. You know, they tell us this economy is the best we can do, but Donald Trump and I know different. Georgia knows different. It's nowhere near the best that we can do. It's just the best they can do. And when Donald Trump becomes president of the United States, we're going to drive policies that unleash the boundless energy of this economy, and we're going to get America working again for every American. Donald Trump has a plan. Donald Trump has a plan to reignite our economy with tax reform, regulatory reform, trade reform, and energy reform. A lot of what conservatives on Capitol Hill have been talking about for a long time, but just simply didn't have a partner in Washington, D.C. to support. That's the truth of it. Now, Donald Trump's going to roll his sleeves up, and he's going to actually embrace that plan the House Republicans put forward. We're going to cut taxes across the board for every American. We're going to lower marginal rates. We're going to end death taxes once and for all. And we're going to lower business taxes so businesses in Georgia can compete with businesses around the world and keep jobs right here. But it's not just about taxation, it's about regulation. That's why Donald Trump on day one is going to do back what we did in the Hoosier State. We cut a few taxes back there in the last 4 years, but we also froze regulations. Donald Trump's going to freeze any new federal regulations. He's going to repeal every Obama executive order on day one that's stifling jobs in Georgia and in this country. And Donald Trump and I both know that the strength of this nation is derived not only from our freedom and from our people and from a foundation of faith and conviction, but also our vast natural resources. And on day one of the Trump administration, the war on coal comes to an end. We're going to allow the American people to call forth the power of this nation and develop all of our resources. And lastly, and Tom and David, if we can get this done on day one, it'd be real good. They actually, before we get inaugurated, the Congress actually convenes. So we'll be looking to them to put on our desk a bill that will repeal Obamacare lock, stock, and barrel. Now, a lot of economists out there, a lot of people are talking about it. You got some real smart economists out there. You see them on TV, like economists like Larry Kudlow and Steve Moore and others. They're pretty excited about this plan. Pretty excited about what it'll mean for American jobs and American growth. Quite a contrast to Hillary Clinton's plan that's projected to cost hundreds of thousands of jobs with its higher taxes and more regulation and more Obamacare. But Hillary Clinton's dubious about that. She actually said the other day that projections about the recovery under a Trump administration were, quote, wildly unrealistic. Now, I got to tell you, the only thing that's wildly unrealistic is electing the same people with the same bad ideas and expecting a different result. Donald Trump and I know the time-honored principles of less taxes, less regulation, more American energy, and smarter and tougher trade deals will create jobs in America for every American. You know, as this election approaches, there's one other issue on the ballot I always feel important to mention. And that is that while we're electing a president for the next 4 years, that president will probably set the course of the Supreme Court of the United States for the next 40 years. In a very real sense, the untimely passing of the late Justice Antonin Scalia has literally put the balance of the Supreme Court on the ballot in 2016. And as tragic as his passing was, and I and Karen had the privilege of paying our respects at the Supreme Court as he lay in state, it seems that when I think about it, it's altogether fitting that not only the destiny of the nation, but the destiny of the nation's highest court is in the hands of the American people on November the 8th. But you need to think about it. Men and women of Georgia, you got to think about it. You got to talk to your neighbors about it. If you care about the Constitution, if you care about the God-given liberties that are enshrined there, you need to think long and hard about what that means. When elect Hillary Clinton, you better get used to being subject to unelected judges using unaccountable power to make more unconstitutional decisions. Elect Donald Trump, and I promise you, you will have a president who stands without apology for the Constitution of the United States of America and for the God-given liberties that are enshrined there. So I say to you, for the sake of the rule of law, for the sake of the rule of law, for the sake of this sanctity of life, for the sake of our Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States, for the sake of all the liberties enshrined in our Bill of Rights and founding documents, we must ensure from Georgia forward that the next president making appointments to the Supreme Court of the United States is President Donald Trump. You know, this is a very challenging time in the life of our nation. It truly is. It seems like there's so many things that divide us anymore. So few things that unite us in great purposes the way they once did. It's in moments like this when politics seem to fail us that I think it's important to remember, whatever you hear on all the talk shows, whatever the pundits say, there will always be more that unites us in the United States of America than will ever divide the good and great people of this land. It's true. Donald Trump and I know that. The last several weeks, many people have marveled and some people have complained about the way that Donald Trump has made it clear that when we talk about making America great again, we mean to make America great again for every American, regardless of race or creed or color. Unfortunately, the old playbook of the other party has come out. The playbook of division, dividing us along racial lines once again. You all have heard it. The hot speeches last week by Hillary Clinton and by her running mate. You know, I got to tell you, I think the American people are tired of politicians who divide the American people to unite their support and win elections. I truly believe that. I want to challenge, the American people are tired of politicians who divide the American people to unite their support and win elections. I truly believe that. We're tired of the divisive politics of the left. And so I want to challenge you. I want to challenge all of you today. As you go forward from here, I hope you've heard something about the issues in this campaign. I hope you've heard about the message that we have to deliver all across Georgia in the 71 days that remain in this campaign. But I hope as you present that choice to neighbors and friends here in Georgia, you'll talk as much about our aspirations as our frustrations. You'll talk as much about the change that we can make as you do the choice that we face. Because I truly do believe that all the divisive rhetoric in the world, all the focus on what divides us, pales in comparison to when the American people recognize that we can be better, we can be stronger, we can have broad-shouldered leadership that commands the respect of the world again, and we can unleash the boundless potential of the American people on a foundation of the liberties enshrined in our Constitution. We can do it. But we've got to choose. So I want you to leave here tonight, I want you to tell somebody, okay? I really do. I mean, tell somebody what you know about, not just about the cascade of controversies coming out of our opposition. It's just hard to keep up. I mean, for heaven's sakes, thousands of emails discovered that they didn't turn over. Now the State Department says they'll get around to releasing their schedule in December, the Justice Department wanted to start an investigation into the Clinton corruption, and the Obama administration shut them down. But I hope just as much that you talk about the stakes in this election. I hope just as much that you go out and talk about aspirations, because I want to assure you that Donald Trump answered the call of this country to step into the gap at such a time as this, because Donald Trump and my little family are both the beneficiaries of the American dream. I mean, it's really amazing if you think about it. My grandfather immigrated to this country just like his did. His father built a business, was a self-made man. My dad built a small gas station business in a small town. Donald Trump and I were both raised to believe that to whom much is given, much will be required. And so we both of us went on to build on what we've been given and what we've been handed down. Believed in the American dream. And frankly, other than a whole bunch of zeros, we've just got a lot in common. It's true. But it's the same thing. I think the reason that he and I and our families made such a connection so quickly is because we both are humbled by what this country has meant for our family. And I just want to assure all of you, as you go out from here, let's lay out the choice. Let's lay out the choice between, this isn't a decision between electing someone who will have America do this well and someone else have America do this well. I truly do believe that this is a choice between someone who's determined to continue the failed policies that have weakened America abroad and have stifled our nation's economy, and someone who is willing to plant his feet in the ground, turn around, and lead the American people back up to the heights of greatness at home and abroad. That's what it is. But that's an aspirational message. So let's draw people to us. And also, I'd say one other thing before I close, and that is, if you're inclined to do as Karen and I do, from time to time, to bend the knee, we encourage you to do it. Not for a candidate or for a cause or for an election, but do as Americans have done and just pray for this country, because I truly do believe, as has been said for millennia, is still true today, that if his people who are called by his name will humble themselves and pray, he'll hear again and he'll heal this land. I believe it with all my heart. I believe it. So, my friends in Georgia, the choice could not be more clear. The American people can elect someone who literally personifies the failed establishment in Washington, D.C., or you can elect a leader who will fight every day to make America great again. But here's the choice, and I think this is another time for choosing. I truly believe it is. My wife's favorite poet is Robert Frost. And there's that really neat poem where it says, two roads diverged in a woods, and I took the road less traveled by, and it made all the difference. America's always taken the road less traveled by, the road of freedom and personal responsibility and rugged individualism. And we can choose that again this year, but we've got to make a choice. So let me lay it out for you one more time. If you want a president who will protect this nation, rebuild our military, restore the arsenal of democracy, confront radical Islamic terrorism, and rid the world of ISIS, if you want a president who will restore law and order to this country and give law enforcement officers the resources and support they need to protect our families and go home safe to theirs, if you want a president who will build strong borders, build a wall, end illegal immigration, and enforce the laws of this nation for the people of this nation, If you want a president who will cut taxes, grow our economy, squeeze every nickel out of that bloated federal bureaucracy, and repeal Obamacare lock, stock, and barrel. And lastly, and this one's my favorite, if you want a president who will upend the status quo in Washington, D.C. and uphold the Constitution and the highest standards in the highest office in the land, then I say to you here in Georgia, tell your neighbors and friends we have but one choice, and that man is ready. This team is ready. This movement is ready. Let's go make sure that Georgia is ready, and we will make Donald Trump the 45th President of the United States of America, and he will make America great again.